Joe Diomede here in Bocage in our local Sunday market. And basically the upcoming interviews are to show that people are just tired of governments turning a blind eye to the refugee crisis that's happening in Europe. Enjoy the following interviews. Thank you.
What's going on in Calais? I mean, it's a feeling, isn't it? For me right now, what's going on in Calais is a feeling. It's not so much what's going on in there in terms of how many refugees are there, or kind of the crisis that's created this, i.e. British, American, and now French weapons dropping on the country that we're blaming for so many of the problems. I mean, I don't know so much about Syria, really, to be honest with you. But I have spoken to a lot of Syrians over a period, whilst this whole thing's been going on. And the impression I got was that Syria manufactured everything themselves. It was really, there's massive employment in Syria. They're a very, very together country, and suddenly bombs start dropping them. And I just see this economic hegemony, this petrodollar kind of domination being the fundamental cause of it. And so we see all that, we see this political play off of that, and then we see the end result, which is all these people that have been disposed from their homes and they're fleeing our bombs made in our country. It just breaks my heart, and that's the feeling that is motivating me right now, because I don't know a solution to this anymore. But everyone's sort of like, we're here at the Grand Jet, which is kind of a sort of like, I don't know how you could best describe this kind of like tin kind of barn, kind of Buena Vista social club kind of vibe thing going on, but it has quite a large membership of about 560 people I think now, and so they've been put on the list, and loads of them have bought food, they've bought clothing, they've bought blankets, they've bought waterproofing, they've bought absolutely loads. So there's been a massive community turnout here, and like I say, no one knows. We hear these stories. I've just heard of a bunch of people that have just got back from Calais, and they were so traumatized by it, what they saw. It just, you just wouldn't want to say. I'm quite nervous about going, because the stories I'm hearing about it, it's absolutely full on toxic waste site. Lots of, I don't know. We don't know what we're going to expect, but it's going to be. All I know is that I've got to go there. Really, I feel as if I've got a calling there, because a big part of my country has created this situation, and I just got to address that. I can't just bury my head in the sand on this one. I've got to do something. And
Facing the fear, going into the unknown, and lending a helping hand, and let's hope that their trip is a success. Good luck, guys.
Thank you very much.
What happened up in Calais when you were up there?
It's just so real. It's like being in a foreign country. I ended up getting a chai at some place on site. I mean, loads of people have got little businesses and that sort of stuff, trying to find a way to make ends meet, because no one's getting any benefits or anything else like that. So when you're up there, there's people bringing food up there. I was helping with a refugee community kitchen. There's lots of people bringing stuff on site, but actually no one's got any sort of form of income other than what they can generate there. So it's really, really difficult situation. It's like a mud pit where people, you've got like 10, 11 different nationalities all piling in from different war-torn areas across the Middle East and Africa. And honestly, it was so overwhelming to see that, and to see people, and I just found myself in one chai store actually saying, how many rupees is that? Asking how many rupees, just because it was just like, it just wasn't England, it wasn't, it wasn't France, or it wasn't anything to do with Europe. It was just like it was just like in 10, 11 different countries, or just, it was so mind-blowing to see it, because it's so real, so friendly, so lovely. You're hearing all these reports that these refugees are really nasty, and it's just a war on refugees. Really. As far as I can see, it's a war on refugees. These guys are being bombed in their homeland, and they're being hated when they come here, because they're real refugees. They're fleeing bombs dropping on them, and we're saying they're not refugees, they're economic migrants. Have you seen the state of Syria? Does someone leave that space? Because there are to someone leave that space because they're just like, oh yeah, you know what I mean, the climate, oh, these bombs dropping on me, you know what I mean, I'm really thinking about better economic prospects.
Yeah, I understand. Well, Dave, let me ask you a question. Is there a feeling of despair then amongst the people, or frustration, or is there hope? Like, I'll get back to Syria, or I'll make my life here. What did you get to that level with anybody?
Can you imagine what it's like watching your compadres coming back after jumping off a bridge to try and jump on a high-speed train to get into England because England won't allow anyone in? You know, the rest of for them to get to this point in Calais, it means the rest of Europe pretty much has opened the doors to these people, but England won't open their doors to them. You know, and so we've got all this media telling us that they can't come in and da-da-da and all this different stuff and all this kind of stuff. They're all rapists and that sort of stuff. These are, you know, there's massive despair. Can you imagine what it's like being there? Coming to the last point where you think you've got family in England, you've got all these prospects in England, and yeah, massive despair.
A lot of despair. Wow. And can we just try to end it on and find a little, is there a bit of positive in there? Is there something going on that maybe you see a chink of light 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road? I know it's a tough one, but you know, these people have come here and they're looking for something.
Well, the upside is whilst we've got all this media coming in that's saying that this is just like these are really horrible refugees, and the upside is that my country, the people in my country are acting. Maybe the government's not acting, but the people of England are acting, and that's the upside. It's mobilised the people in England. Even if we haven't got David Cameron and his horrible government on side, at least we've got the people on side. They are mobilising. That is hopeful, and they are representing Britain at the moment, as far as I'm concerned. So upside for all those people that are on that site helping. You're saints, you know.
Well, thank you, Dave. So now we have Ben, who had gone up there, what, 2-3 weeks ago, Ben?
I went up there 2.5 weeks ago for a week. Yeah.
Right. So we began 2016 with a bit of shock. So Ben, tell us, what did you see up there in Calais?
Okay, so up there, there's two main camps. There's a camp in Calais, which has about 7,000 to 8,000 refugees there, and on that camp they're allowed to build some structures. So there's wooden houses, there's little restaurants and chai shops set up by mainly Afghanis and Iraqis. And then there's another camp that I didn't go to in Dunkirk, which is just tents, basically. And it's a swamp. So you've got families living. I think there's a couple of thousand refugees there. The conditions are much worse. But the camp that I saw, Calais, the conditions are pretty bad, but not as bad as Dunkirk. And actually, it's divided. The camp in Calais is divided into ethnic groups and nationalities. So there's the Kurdish section, Syrian section, Iraqi section, Afghani section, etc.
Now, did that happen by design, or did that happen naturally?
Yeah, it's not an official policy. There's no real official policy happening in the jungle. It's just an improvised village ghetto. And basically, just when the refugees arrive, they just head automatically to their people. People who speak their language and they share culture and that sort of thing. And personally, while I was there, I was helping out at a kitchen called the Refugee Community Kitchen, which can be donated to and volunteered for. And they set up a kitchen in a warehouse about 3-4 kilometers from the jungle, and they're cooking meals for 2,000 to 2,500 refugees a day. So that food is cooked in the kitchen in the warehouse, put in a van, taken to the camp, to the jungle, and distributed out of a shed. So I was mainly chopping veg and washing up and just helping out there. And then I went into the jungle a few times and I do magic shows and stuff. So there's a geodesic dome set up there by a theatre company called Good Chance Theatre Company from England. And I did some shows there and just tried to have a bit of positive input in that way. To make people laugh and have a good time. There's kids there as well. They kind of need, just have a good time.
Is there a big presence of NGOs there, or is it mostly individual volunteers or makeshift kind of NGOs, like people getting together from universities, say in England or France, and what countries were there countries more apparent than others, of people from countries helping out? I mean,
the only NGO there, as far as I know, is Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. they're taking care of the toilets and the some other things. Apart from that, none of the major NGOs or charities are busy there because the camp is not officially recognised as a refugee camp. I think if the French government do that, then they start having to give rights to the people that are there. So nearly all the work is being done by just cobbled together organisations, mainly from England, some from France. Nearly all of the volunteers are from England. There's hundreds there doing, as I say, cooking, support work, legal advice, cultural support. It's quite incredible. So basically, in a nutshell, what's happening there is the worst of humanity is on show in that this is being allowed to happen in France, and the best of humanity in that there's so much love and compassion and aid coming in just from people who are moved to help on their own or in little groups, as I say, mainly from England.
Wow, thank you, Ben, for that.
One last thing is that the refugees in Calais and Dunkirk make up less than 1% of the refugees that are on the move in Western Europe now. So although it's a massive situation, and it's a very visual situation because it's in France and it's so close to Britain, in Macedonia, Greece, Hungary, and other places, it's basically Calais, Dunkirk. What's happening there is the tip of the iceberg. It's very visual, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Wow, and we close off with that sobering thought. Virginie, hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, so Virginie was up there, and I'm going to let her just talk about the experience, what drew her to go up there, and what did she find when she got there. So, Virginie, tell us a little about Calais. What's happening up there?
Okay, I can share what I saw, and it's difficult when you arrive on the first day to understand because it's many people, many companies, association, yeah, okay, and many people trying to do some things. So I start cooking, and at the second day I want to go to the jungle and see what happens. So I stay there most of the time. I try to stay with the children first and understanding what they need, and they need some basic things like pants, and they have lice, and they have scabies. So they try to find some solution for this. Also, I love to go to the family and speak with the family for understand what is happening for them. And I discover majority of the people with who I speak are people having a life in their country. Eritrea, I enjoy to stay with Eritrea people. And these people was rich in this country because for pay this travel, you should to have a lot of money and had a situation, home, life. So they are not happy to be here. It's not because they want to come in Europe and have a better life. They want to stay here waiting the war is going down in the country and come back there. And I think politics in France and England, they are confusing immigration and refugees. It's really not what they are living there. So maybe there is some people wanting to arrive in England and stay in England, but most of them explain me, we had a life there. They have a job, money, house, family, all the life. So they just explain they are waiting the war stop in the country and they want to come back.
Wow, very interesting because we're told that those people want to come here. Come a little closer to me, Virginie, just in case my cameraman is very stiff. Yes, we're told that they're coming here just so they get a better life. People don't think that these people are leaving a life. They left their homes, their jobs, and they really are refugees in the right sense. They're not immigrants trying to find a way. Yeah, and.
I think it's a small percentage, it's a small part of them.
Sure. And what did you actually, so on the ground you said they had lice, they had scabies. What were their living conditions?
In the Eritrea part where I stay a lot, people have cold. They are cold because they are coming from Africa, no? So it's difficult because they don't have wood. And my small job was each morning trying to go with some wood boxes and offer some wood boxes at some house like this at night. They have some fire, and they have nothing to do. They turn around, They are there waiting for some things, and maybe nothing will happen during months or year. And when I was there is between 7 and 8,000 people. Now there are 10,000. I mean, 3 weeks after, 2 or 3 weeks after. So it's enormous what it's happening.
Wow. And so you say Eritrea. Any other countries that come to mind of people who were there?
Yes, a lot from Libya, Syria, and some Pakistani. Most of them it's Syria and Eritrea. For me, what I see.
Right. And the people from Syria, they also were fleeing war, and they have lives they were fleeing and wanted to go back to Syria?
Tell me some simple things like, if Europe is not going to make a war there, we will come back there. So just let us live here a moment, just the time the war finish, and we will come back at home.
Right, so very interesting.
They don't want war because they, I don't know how we say in English, but they leave the country because it is in war. And one of the mission I tried to do there also, because they asked me to make, what is the name? To go to speak with the CRS, with the police, because they don't want this violence, and they get a lot of violence. When they find some refugee out of the camp, they take them. The CRS, they drive 5 or 10 kilometers, they fight them, and they leave them in the countryside. And they don't know how to come back to the camp. So they asked me to create a mediation. Right. And I enter in the way to understand how can I create a mediation.
Liaison.
They don't want. France don't want to take the package. England don't want to take the package. So CRS explain the best for them, it's the volunteers. Because we are out of association, out of the country, that brings there a lot of help, support, humanity, and they think it's the best we can do for the moment.
Wow.
Yeah, as a volunteers.
Interesting. Well, very good. Well, thank you for going as a volunteer, Virginia. I'm sure it was very tough, physically, mentally, and many other ways, yes?
Yeah, it's a big question after for me, because I was there, I enter in a relation with a specific family in London. The woman is pregnant. She's 6 months pregnant, and baby is arriving in March. And I think I am a mother too. If I am in war here, maybe I take my children and I'm going far to find a country, and I hope someone open a door and take me in their life for a moment, no? And I'm just asking me why I'm not doing it. I would love to invite this family to live in my land for some months, but for the moment, my experience is why I'm not doing it. Right.
Well, look, you've done a lot more than many other people, and thank you. And I understand, yes, all of us here with you know, could we be doing more? It's a very difficult question.
So every people want to go there for help. 2 days, 1 week, 10 days, go, because it's the best we can do for the moment. It gives some hours. They need food. They are very hungry. When we serve food, they are all coming running. They are very angry.
Okay, very hungry. Okay, thank you, Virginie. That was wonderful. Thank you for filling us in on that experience. Speaking to Katya, who's been involved with an association called Playing for Change here in France, and it encompasses many different subjects, and I'll let Katya explain. Firstly, Playing for Change. Hello, Katya. How are you?
Hello, Joe. I'm fine, thanks.
And so tell me, what is Playing for Change, and just briefly, and how long has it been around?
Playing for Change, the global project, has been around since 2003. The first videos have been out since 2005. And it was a project of recording street musicians to keep the quality that exists in the street somewhere documented, and to do it around the world. So.
And you know, we're speaking of the refugee crisis that's going on in Europe right now. And how did it make a transition to Playing for Change Occitanie, which is the local Playing for Change right here that you're involved with? And what are they doing? What are they trying to do with the refugee crisis and what's going on in Europe right now? What's happening with those?
Well, Playing for Change is a lot about the respect of the original culture. And it seemed to me that the refugees coming here, they are pushed very hard to become French tomorrow. And they can't, because they have left their countries not out of free will. They're not here because they've chosen to come here. They are here because they have no other place to go. And nobody is really willing to build the bridge towards them, because it's not like me. I came to France. I knew that I would have to do a lot of paperwork. I won't understand. I will have to learn French. But they come here and they are expected to act like people who are here out of free will. And so they had no free choices. Even the ones that are privileged, like the ones we work with in Foix, who had their récépissé, they have the status of refugee. They have school, they have their own apartments, but still they had the impression that they have no decision of their own. They go to school when they are told, they go to do paperwork when they are told, they don't know where they will live. When the families arrived, they were very, very anxious because they didn't know where they would move them. They were scared to be all separated. And all this situation leads to inertia. They don't move anymore. They don't dare doing anything. And so my aim was take them out, make them discover life quality at the countryside as well. A lot of the refugees coming here are scared of the countryside. So bring them to the countryside and say, hey, there are nice people here. It can be even nicer than in a big town. Because for them, countryside is poor, insecure. It's where you're sent when you've done something wrong. So
Right, okay. And so the Playing for Change, so tie that in, what's happening with actually the Playing for Change and the refugees themselves? So these people who are displaced, what's happening? What are you doing? What is Playing for Change helping them?
Listen to them. It's the Playing for Change is a lot about exchange of cultures. Listen to each culture, let them work it out on their terms, on their way, and not to push them into our culture. But so what I'm doing is to listen to them and see, okay, this is the difference between them and us, and then to try to get them to realize it themselves, to get them to realize what do I need to learn to become happy in this society. Because they feel very much forced and pushed into things, and I want to try to get them to realize, okay, I need some training, I need to learn some new things. They very much stick to their cultures, to their food, to their music, to their clothes, to everything they've brought from home because they have left home forced.
Unwillingly, yes.
Yeah, unwillingly. And so to make them take these first steps toward us, and to say, okay, you can trust us. We won't take all this away from you. And even if you taste our food, you can still eat your Syrian food tomorrow. And sometimes it's really very funny. And Playing for Change does this in music, in dance, in theater, in mask building, and whatever other artistic expressions we have. Here we have two potters in Foix, and another decorator painter who lives in Calais. And these Syrians, they now will do an exhibition on Friday. And the fact to be able to exhibit again, to work, to show their work, it gave them so much energy. It's like the kids when they say the music is, if we can't play music, half of our head is missing. And for them it's the same thing. If they can't work, if they can't express themselves through their work, half of themselves is missing.
Right. So the Playing for Change is getting that human side rather than, okay, we do need food to nourish ourselves and our lives like we spoke off camera before, but what gives us the spirit of life is food enables us to continue and do the things we like to do, and that's what Playing for Change feels like it's doing.
Yeah, it's to what's the spirit of this? So if we do things with them today and we create things with them today, then we have a real chance of creating an interchange community and to build bridges between our cultures. If we don't do it and we say, yeah, they are different, say they just stick to themselves, then it will never be done. And where will we end? Because there are more coming, and the fences will not stop them, the closing up of borders will not stop them. So if the countries, the governments do not realize that, if they say we can keep them out, it's not true. We can't keep them out because it's danger and galère that brings them here. And so they will come one way or the other. It will just cost them more money and there will be more death, but it won't stop them. So we have to work with them and we have to find ways and degrowth to share what we have. We have so much luxury. We build it out of their resources since 400 years. How can we build a fence now and say, you have to stay out? Why I have a warm ass in front of my fireplace? It's incredible for me. So to say, okay, we have to share, we have to adapt, we have to do permaculture, we have to share our riches. I live in a house of 100 square meters. My son has gone to studies. Sure, I can accommodate 2 or 3 people if we can understand each other. So maybe we have to learn some Arabic as well. Why is it only them who have to adapt? All these reflections, they are not very present. The government doesn't think like that.
Sure. We think here we are now, and what we've taken off of them for the last 400 years doesn't matter. But you're saying, hey, let's build this bridge together. And personally, have you seen with any of the refugees that you've dealt with personally here, have you seen a change from one day to the next when you introduce pottery or music or something?
Oh yeah, incredible. It's incredible. Just the fact to propose to listen to them. They are very silent and very polite. They respect. They don't talk of themselves. But when you really ask them, what do you want to do with your life? They just explode with ideas. And the potters in particular, when I took them to some of the workshops, the local workshops, where they got a potter's wheel as a gift, some clay. They went home and they were like the one brother that had done the tour with me to pick everything up. He said, "Oh, I don't call my brother. It's a big surprise. You will see when we arrive at the apartment." And so the other brother, he was all like, "Oh, what's this? Why are you bringing all this? Oh, it's ours? Really? We can work again?" And 24 hours later, they sent me all the pictures of all the little pieces they had made, and they were so happy and focused. They built their own tools. They found purpose in life again.
Wow, excellent. Well, you threw a few words in. I know we're getting a little long on the interview, but that's fine because this is very interesting. You threw a couple of words in there that might have passed people's ears. Degrowth, which is décroissance in French, and permaculture. So you not only are you teaching them to enter French culture, you're also teaching an alternative way that maybe a lot of people see the future for humanity in general with creative use. So explain a little that décroissance, degrowth, and the permaculture, and how that helps with the refugees as well.
We call the project "Ça prend tournure" in French. It's taking a turn, because it's a turn in their life they haven't chosen. But I want to make it a turn positive for them and to lead them to new technologies and to learn the things we have to learn as well. Not to teach them the way of the system that's right now going against the wall, but to teach them the technology and the ways to be of tomorrow. So permaculture, social inclusion, other ways of governing, sharing, abundance, or social gardens, social economy, all this, I think, is something, when they have to learn a new structure, they might as well learn a better structure and not learn just how they do the same thing again here, what they did already in Syria and which finally led to the war in their country. So ecologically, they have no training at all. It was not a topic in Syria. But so now they surnamed me the Daesh of the bio. Because I always shouted, "No plastic, no plastic," and I want bio-vegetables and so on. And
bio being organic for the English speakers.
So they are really funny. And the young people, there is the ongoing revolution in Syria, the opening on the other countries. So the younger generation, those that are about between 25 and 30, they are very curious. They want to learn, they want adventure, they want their women to learn French, they want their children, the girls, to live something else, not to be as stuck and closed in as they would have been in Syria. So all these are very, very interesting openings, and if I wouldn't talk to them so much and pass so much time with them, I wouldn't hear it. So the periphery to watch and interact. Often I'm just sitting there and I'm letting the conversation flow, and I see where it's going, and then I pick up this or that topic. Oh, this seems interesting. You want to do this? Oh, yeah, if I could, I would, but nobody told me I could. Yeah, but maybe with the association we can. So to give them bits where they decide themselves again, so to take control of their own lives, to be a bit self-reliant, and so it's all part of the permaculture, social permaculture.
Look at the pottery, and Katja is going to explain.
Yeah, this is the first pieces our Syrian friends made. They got a potter's wheel as a gift, and 60 kilos of earth, and they got to work right away. And before in Syria, they made pieces up to 3 meters high. And here you see, I put my hand here to have a size comparison. It's really very small pieces, so they adapted to the space they have and to the new circumstances very quickly.
Okay, here we are standing in Montbron Market. I'm speaking with Patrick Chalmers. Fill my audience in on what you feel is actually happening down here.
Okay, so I qualify it with a, it's my tiny view of the world. My experience of the question of the refugees is one of going to meet a few in Toulouse, and then also trying to sort of build things up here where we live. Here where I live, I'm a British person who lives in France. I live in this place which is an hour's drive from Toulouse. It's a sort of rural place, and people here don't accept the idea that we can't do anything to help the refugees. They don't accept that the refugees are a problem. They think more along the lines, I mean, not everyone, but there are a good group of people here who are saying, we've got to help the refugees. And that poses an immediate problem for people in the southwest France, which is that there aren't many refugees here, which is an interesting sort of situation in itself. There aren't that many refugees in France. In the same way there aren't that many refugees in the UK, where I come from, is because the governments in those two countries have got a very strong political position, which is refugees are a problem, Greece has got to do more, Turkey's got to do more, these people need to be helped by the countries around Syria, particularly Syrians who are coming among refugees, which is a huge contrast to a country like Germany, which is another of the European Union countries. Germany's last year had over 1 million refugees accepted, and here it's a couple of thousand, in the whole of France. So we want to do something. There aren't that many refugees, but there are some. There are some in Toulouse, which is an hour away. There are some in Foix, and there could be more if people were prepared to help. And there are more also in squats in Toulouse who they need food, they need accommodation, they need some sort of security, they need all sorts of stuff. So what's happening here? People are, like on the market here, they're collecting food, collecting bits and pieces of food to basically just give to people. There was the support evening in a local cafe here, and where quite a bit of money was basically collected, people buying food and drink on the night, people giving money, all that sort of stuff, and buying food. There's going to be sort of support weekends with music and meetings with refugee families talking about what they're doing. And basically at our tiny, tiny level, with a few amount of refugees that there are here at the moment, we're just going to try and do something. And I mean, there are plenty of people here who have the sort of political thinking of the Second World War, where there were refugees all over Europe and they needed help. And there were places in France, as in other places there, that looked after people who were on the run, whether it was Jewish families, whether it was people who were escaping the Nazis, or even Vichy France. And it's this idea that we need to reach out to our fellow human beings. There is not a refugee problem, there is a humanitarian question, and it's a question of how we behave in the face of that. So that's sort of what's going on here. Tiny scale, but something in the face of sort of our politicians and most of the conventional media who are saying, well, it's a big problem, we're getting overwhelmed. That's garbage. We need to help these people because they're having a really tough time.